Hello, this is Warlord. What we're going to do today is make a simple character in Studio Max. We're going to put a biped in it, then we're going to skin it, and then we're going to go from there into 3DXchange, get it ready to go into iClone, and then use it in iClone. Now the character is going to be a Halloween character, and it's going to be a broom with arms, like a witch's broom. We're just making it into a regular character, and we're going to use a biped to do that with. And we're also going to keep it very simple. We're going to keep the mesh simple and things like that. So let's go ahead and let's get started. What I'm going to do down here is click the perspective window, and I'm going to press the number 7 so I can bring up my poly count so I'll know where I'm at. And let's go ahead and let's go over to extended primitives. Let's go to capsule, and let's just get a capsule started here. And what we're going to do is go into parameters of that capsule, and then we'll decide from there. Let's make it like 250 tall. And I'm set on centimeters because that is basically what iClone uses. Of course, you can always just rescale. I'm going to go to 3 centimeters across. And let's make that 2. That's still too thick. And this is going to be the handle. Now, we're also going to use this for the arms. So I'm going to go ahead and hold Shift, and I'm going to make a copy of it. Oh, let me show you something. Let's cancel that. And let's come up here and let's go to Angle Snap. So you can see that if you want to keep it straight, you can use that to snap in like quarters or 15 degrees, things like that. So that goes ahead and creates our arms. Now, in order to make this easier to work, let's go ahead and reset our pivot. So I'm over here under Hierarchy, Effect Pivot. I'm just going to center it, and then I'm going to come out of there. Now I'm ready to move it. I'm going to move it up and just kind of guess where you want it. Kind of guess where it would be like in relationship to this being arms to a head. You don't want it too far down. Okay, let's say like right there. Now let's go ahead and get started. And what we're going to do is this is going to be a broom with a round kind of bottom. We can go ahead and make several different kinds of bottoms, and I'll show you how to do at least a couple of them. But in order to do that, before we get started, we need to cut this end off because we're going to keep our poly count low. And to keep our poly count low, we're going to need to use as much of the original mesh as possible. Now, one thing I didn't do is add enough segments, I don't think. Well, there's 12 sides, and we're also going to need 12 segments on each one of these. Now I'm going to click the one going across, and I'm going to make sure it has 12 segments too. If you don't have enough segments, it won't bend enough once you put the bones or the biped in. And you may even get the arms pulling away from the body or something like that. So we now have 12 segments to each one of these. And what I'm going to do now is, with this selected, I am going to come over here and add an edit poly. And all I'm going to do with this edit poly is select the bottom down here. And we're going to cut it off. I can't cut off all this or it would cut it off up to the next group of polys. What I want to do is just cut off the bottom. Now that also leaves us with a hole even though we can't see it. So I'm going to come in and cap hole. So now we don't have to worry about the holes. Now I'm ready to add another edit poly. Now you don't want to get in the habit of stacking a lot of edit polys because they can increase the poly count significantly on some models. But in this case, we're just going to keep stacking it up because it's going to be a simple character. So what I'm going to do right now is I want to make this into a broom bottom, and what I'm doing is just moving up some of these vertex lines, and you'll see here in a minute why. Don't panic if you don't understand right now. All I'm doing is moving those out of the way so I can get to this bottom one. I've got it selected. Now, if you want it to be a regular broom, like a conventional broom, you could pull it out like this. But I want it to be a rounded broom, so I'm going to go into the center and do it something like that. Now we're going to come in here where we grabbed those polys before, and we're going to pull it up. Now we don't want to get these too closely bunched. I'm just going to keep pulling it up right there. Now basically what I'm going to do is just kind of get these two out of the way and really just use these two right here. Because what this is going to be is like the band that they would use to wrap around to hold this to the stick, to hold the straw to the stick. Now, in order to do that, and in order for this to maintain different, keep the poly count down and maintain different textures, I'm going to switch to an edit mesh. And I'm going to come in here to polygon, and I'm going to grab just where that band would be. And let's go ahead and pull it up. And I'm just in the compact editor mode. And what I'm going to do right here is just change this to a dark color. Once the color's mapped, you can make it almost anything. I'm just going to call it band. You can make it almost anything in iClone. This right here shows, when I click it, it's going to show the material once I assign it. And now what that does is assign everything except that right there, everything except that band. The band itself is the only thing that's assigned, the texture. Now I'm going to go ahead and probably go ahead and get the straw for the bottom. We're going to use a bitmap for that. And let's see here. We'll go find a straw. There it is. And whatever you name it here is what it will be named in iClone. Just going to call that straw. Alright, we've got that mapped. Now, I want to map the rest of it. Except I want this to be a wood. So, let me see about finding some wood somewhere. This is in the 3ds Max maps. I'm just getting the wood planking. You can use any wood that you want. I'm going to assign that. Now we have that textured, and I'm going to assign the same wood to that part. Okay, now we basically have our character built. This is all our character is going to be. We may need to do a little bit of adjustment. Now we're ready to go ahead and add our biped. So I'm going to go to the front view and use it. And then you'll find biped under the first tab. Go over here to Systems, biped. Let's start at the bottom. Let's just draw it up. Okay. Now we want to come over to the Motion tab and click on the biped button itself so we can do some adjustments. And let's go ahead and put them in a T-pose. There is a way you could do these arms together as one, but we won't get into that right now. And what I want to do is I want this hip to be right about there. And let's see if I can center it up a little. Now that's about where I want the hips to be. So what I'm going to do next is just grab these and freeze them. So it'll make it easier to come in and select the biped if you freeze what's behind it. I'm just going to scale these down to where they fit inside. Scale these up. Go to the neck. Scale it up. Okay, now let's unfreeze. It looks like this is a little bit long. Just make sure it covers. And it's not quite in the center. We'll center it. Okay. Alright, I'm going to have to say that pretty much has it. So now let's go ahead and let's grab our character, our broom. And what we need to do first off is, in order to not have to skin this twice, we need this to be one character. So let's take a look at this. This is a capsule. We could convert it, or we could just make it an edit mesh, which is the last thing we had here. I don't even know if that matters. Probably could be an edit poly. We're going to attach, And what we're going to do is just see if we can grab just that, which we did. Now that's a single mesh. So now we should be able to come in here when we select the mesh and go down and add a good old-fashioned skin modifier. And then we're going to add the bones. And we're going to Control A to add everything. Add all the bones. And there we have it. Now, that should be skinned and ready to export. So, let's go ahead and File, Export. I've already done this once, as you can see, as a test. I'll call this broom man character 2. And one thing to make sure of is that you have this set, because we're going to use 3DXchange. Be sure you have this set in FBX 2011 for your FBX file format. Hit OK. Just ignore that and hit OK. Now we're ready to go ahead and load that FBX mesh into 3DXchange, and we'll come back and do that next. Okay, now we're in 3DXchange 6. So let's go ahead and import the FBX broom man character 2. There's no animation to import, and I usually always leave adjust material color automatically checked. Now, here's our character mesh, and if you wanted to smooth this mesh, you'd need to select the mesh itself and then come over here to your smoothing, like auto smooth, hit it with that selected, and then it would smooth it. Now, in order to go ahead and finish the rigging, let's select root mode, and let's move on down, and let's convert to a non-standard. We did this using a Studio Max biped, so we'll use Studio Max. That maps it for us. Let's make it active. Let's go to Explain 1. And there's your character. Now you can see why those 12 segments in each one were important. Where the hands bend, where the neck and head are bending, those were all where the segments were. So where you place those segments depends a lot on how that works. Also, it depends on where the bones are in relation to the segments too. Like the skull was up here. This was the neck, things like that. Now let's go ahead and take one more look at basic walk. Yeah, I think that's going to look pretty good. This is only 982 faces, so you could have gone back and made this a much more complicated character or mapped a better texture on it or things. There's a lot of things we could have done, but I wanted to keep it low poly because we may want to put several of these on the screen. So now that we have that, let's see how the T-pose looks. I just always like to check the T-pose. And now we're ready to go ahead and convert. Now we're converted into a character, and we're ready to go ahead and apply it to iClone. Okay, and here we are in iClone. And let's see what we have here. These are personas. Let's go ahead and load the Mason persona. Right click, perform, talk serious. That's not bad, a little bit of adjustment. You're going to have to move in like for the waist and things like that. But as you can see, we actually have a working character and it didn't take that much. This can be done in Blender, anything that you can put bones in, skin, or make an animated character like that. You could also, I guess, upload this to Mixamo and do it on their auto rigger. And now also, if you wanted to come in here and adjust, you could just come in here and, just like anything, press your N key. And you could just use these to adjust the pose, since there is really no waist or things like that. Anyway, I hope this helps.